Welcome to How I Built My Fundraising Consultancy, the stories behind the people driving results in the nonprofit sector.
You want to try and figure out value-based billings. Don't charge by the hour or by the day. Don't charge based on an hourly rate or even a daily rate, but based on what value you bring to the client. If I'm writing a development plan for an organization and it should help them raise $100,000, then $5,000 to $10,000 to charge for that might be a reasonable fee, 5 to 10% of what they should raise, something like that. That would be significantly more money than it would take if I charged them by the hour. It's a win-win for both the client and for you.
Today in the show is Amy Eisenstein. She started her business back in August of 2008 and prior was the director of development for a few different nonprofits. Amy has done a fantastic job creating a personal brand that fundraisers recognize. In this interview, you'll hear some invaluable tips on creating evergreen content that will bring you business. You can find more information on Amy's consultancy over at www.amyeisenstein.com. Here's my interview with Amy.
I'm here today with Amy Eisenstein. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I was looking over a bit of your background, and you've been doing this since 2008. And prior to that, you were working as a director of development in a couple different nonprofits. What encouraged you to make the leap from being director of development to starting your own consultancy?
Well, there were a lot of reasons, but I think I wanted the opportunity to be able to help a lot of nonprofits at the same time, as opposed to just working for one single mission or cause. So I saw it as an opportunity to help a lot of organizations simultaneously. I was also looking for a different work style and lifestyle and just have more flexibility than commuting. So it was twofold.
Okay. And from the beginning, did you always have the empowering your nonprofit in you as your slogan, or when did you come up with that, and how did you come up with that slogan?
At the beginning, almost 10 years ago, when I was trying to come up with a name and slogan for my company, I put a lot of time and effort thinking into it. It was something else at the time. I can't even remember what it was now. I have the slogan, Empower Your Nonprofit and You, because it's for the development staff. The consulting I do is to help empower development staff members individually and as the organization. But I have to admit, I'm not sure it matters as much as I thought it mattered when I was coming up with it or trying to carefully select my company name, which originally was something else. And in the past couple of years, I just switched to my own name because it turned out I was the brand, not whatever random name I had picked for my company before.
Yeah, and it's not even Amy Einstein Consultancy. It's just your name.
Yeah, it's just Amy Eisenstein LLC now. I started with TriPoint Consulting and TriPoint Fundraising. I had some very thoughtful and deep meaning for the 3 points, and I thought it was very impactful. It turned out not so much.
Yeah. Now, in 2008, was the web a primary way of getting business back then, or was it a lot of phone calls and meeting with people face to face?
At that time, I knew I needed a website. It was an online resume at that point, but it probably wasn't the primary way that work came to me. It was more face to face meetings, speaking engagements, those types of things.
Okay. And speaking something you pretty heavily promote on your website, is that a pretty substantial part of your business these days?
It is now. At the beginning, it was one of my marketing tools, speaking for free the first few years that I was in business. But now that I've developed a reputation and my business has grown, speaking is actually a major part of my income and my business plan. Yes.
Okay. And how do you balance that with consulting and coaching? Do you have a set number of clients you're aiming to be working with at one set of time? And do you kind of balance that with the other sides of your business?
You know, I think the amazing part of being a consultant is that you do get to change and morph as you figure out what you like to do, as you figure out what you're good at, quite frankly. And I had a lot more clients at the beginning of my consultancy because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. But it turns out that I'm a much better trainer and I enjoyed the training and speaking much more, so I've focused more on that. I don't think there's a right number of clients at any one time because the projects range significantly. When I was working on a couple of capital campaigns at a time, that probably was all I could handle as a solopreneur at a time. So 3, 4, 5 clients at a time. If I was doing development plans and other things, maybe I could handle 10 or 12 clients at a time. So it sort of depends on the scale and scope of the project. Now that I'm doing more teaching and training, it's more one-offs. I have a lot of those a year and a smaller number of clients.
Okay.
I'm able to choose that, and that's what I've found that I like to do.
You mentioned training as something you really enjoy doing. When a nonprofit brings you in, are you training the board members? What different levels are you working with?
I'm frequently training board and staff, senior staff generally, the executive director or CEO, and any top development staff members, as well as the board.
Okay. And as I was looking through your site, I noticed a wealth of just different free resources and books you've written and the blog. How'd you develop this, content strategy for creating this content and having that pair up with potential clients that you want to attract?
So I think there are lots of different types of consultants. And so as you're going through your business, and it morphs over time too. At the beginning of my consulting, I certainly didn't have as strong of an online presence as I do today. But I decided at some point 6 or 7 years ago that was an area that I wanted to develop. And so I started the blog probably 6, 7 years ago, and I was blogging once a month, which is sort of what I thought I could handle. Then the following year, I did it twice a month. And now for several years now, I've been doing weekly. And I actually am doing a video blog most weeks. It has morphed and changed, but I just decided that if I wanted to have an online presence and a national and international presence, free content was the way to go.
Yeah. And I noticed the blog is not dated at all. The posts don't have this was published this day. Is that to make the content more evergreen where people don't feel it's outdated?
It is, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You have a book series, In the Trenches. When did that become part of strategy, or when did you start writing those?
When I was making the switch from full-time in a nonprofit to consulting, I realized that I didn't know how to be in business for myself. I didn't know how to be a consultant, but I did know the fundraising and the nonprofit management part. So I decided to read all the books that I could on how to become a consultant and how to be a successful entrepreneur. And so one of the things that the books taught me was that having your own published book was like a golden business card, it said. And so it had never occurred to me to write a book before, but here it was saying that this is a golden business card, having a published book. I started to brainstorm and research, how do I figure out how to get published through a combination of hard work, good luck, timing, whatever it is. I did find a publisher, Charity Channel Press, and I was able to get a contract with them, and I have written 3 books for them. So the first one did come out right at the beginning, probably 2008, 2009, something around there. Mm-hmm. And then every 2 or 3 years since, I have published another book.
Okay. And what's been the process of writing those? Has that been a huge time investment to do that?
It has been a huge time investment. It is a huge undertaking to write a book. I did read in one of these other consulting books that I was reading, if you write 1 page every day, by the end of the year, you have a 365-page book. And so, it is just about consistency, taking it, 1 or 2 hours at a time every single day and getting a page or 2 down. None of my books are 365 pages, but it does take a huge amount of time. And the one thing I will say about the books is it did turn out to be a golden business card, but most nonprofit authors that I know don't make money from the books themselves. I mean, maybe you make a few $1,000s a year, but that's not why you write a book. It's not to make money from the book itself. It's for the reputation building, the prestige, and the clients and speaking engagements that follow. And honestly, that is when I started to get paid to speak as opposed to be a free speaker.
You become an expert in the field if you've written a book on it, right?
Right, exactly.
Have you found a certain distribution channel the most popular for your book and people finding you? Is Amazon the way people are discovering the books, or through your website?
I think probably through my website and through Amazon. Certainly it's at conferences when I speak and things like that, but probably mostly through Amazon or
Okay.
my website.
Yeah. And then I noticed, online you mentioned was really a big part of your business these days. You have a really good presence on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and even YouTube. You have, I think, like 1,500 subscribers there. What network's been the most valuable for you, and what would you recommend new consultants utilize from the start?
I've sort of ebbed and flowed with my social media activity. Some years I'm more active than others. I'm not convinced or sold yet. The thing that's helped me the most is having a list. So my own email list that I email every single week with my blog posts and a little bit of chitter chatter introducing the blog post. The social media to me is just to build your list. That's the whole goal. Everything else comes from my list and me being able to send weekly emails or notices or notifications to my own email list.
Okay, so you'll use social media to drive people to the resources on your website that would get them on your email kind of distribution and all of
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
As far as running this business, do you have a staff to help in any way, virtual assistants or any help in that regards?
Over the years, I have definitely hired people. The first was probably my web person to help build out my website and have that be more professional. Now that person actually helps put up my blog posts, format them. He helps with SEO, which helps people find me on Google. I don't know the technical side, which is why I hired somebody. And so if somebody's Googling major gifts, he helps with the SEO that helps them, my site come up towards the top, hopefully. So that was my first hire. I've hired people for back-end stuff like bookkeeping and things like that. Also for helping with online marketing. I have an online course now, so I've helped people. So it's mostly technical and bookkeeping that I've hired people for. I haven't had the need yet for a virtual assistant, but I may be getting there soon.
Okay. And in the very beginning, how many clients did it take for you to be able to financially make the step in going full-time?
I was fortunate that the job that I was leaving did keep me on, but of course you don't know that when you're leaving. Technically, they were my first client.
Okay. Yeah, that's not an uncommon story. I've heard a couple different consultants, they become a consultant for their old job, which I find remarkable.
Right.
Yeah.
I quickly was able to build a handful of clients. And I think that first year I did have 10, which was amazing. One of the things that I've learned, and honestly, I read about in those initial days in those consulting books, was you may have a lot of clients right off the bat because you're going to be using your networks and your contacts from when you were working full time. The question is, can you maintain a pipeline in years 2, 3, and 4? Because even if you start out with a bang, you have 10 clients, and then all of a sudden those projects come to an end, have you been able to sort of build a pipeline, or are you 2 or 3 years out into consulting? You've not maintained the contacts and networks that you had when you were working full time, and now you're in trouble. One of the challenges is balancing the marketing yourself and the doing the consulting work at the same time.
Yeah, you don't want to run out of work. What makes an ideal client for you?
For me, I'm looking for organizations that are looking to grow their major gifts program and to engage their program in individual giving and fundraising.
Okay. And in the beginning, did you have to make a financial investment in the business?
It was pretty minimal. I mean, I think my investment was a laptop, a printer, some letterhead, and a logo design. Honestly, maybe $2,000 or $3,000. It wasn't much.
Yeah. What would you tell someone that is about to take the leap? Any advice for that person?
Talk to lots of people, get ready for the ups and downs, sort of be able to brace yourself for the ebb and flow. Sometimes you're going to have a ton of clients and other times you're going to have few clients. I think it really is a roller coaster ride for many, many consultants. A couple of things that has made my business a success. Number one is you want to try and figure out value-based billing. So basically, Don't charge by the hour or by the day. Don't charge based on an hourly rate or even a daily rate, but based on what value you bring to the client. One of the things that I'm really pleased that I don't do is I don't track my time. So I'm not worried if a project takes me 5 hours or 10 hours. I mean, of course, I have a general sense, but that's not how I'm calculating what my fee structure is. If I'm writing a development plan for an organization and it should help them raise $100,000, then $5,000 to $10,000 to charge for that might be a reasonable fee, 5 to 10% of what they should raise, something like that. That would be significantly more money than it would take if I charged them by the hour. It's a win-win for both the client and for you. The reason that hourly billing is not good is because you can only charge as much as you can work. And in consulting, you need to do a lot of other things besides working billable hours, like marketing yourself and doing bookkeeping in the back end and those types of things. So you don't want to get into hourly bill. I just don't like to track my time, so I'm not going to bill hourly. Also, another advantage of that is letting clients call you whenever they need you to. You don't want them thinking, should I call Amy right now and she's going to charge me $50 or $100 or $200 or whatever.
Right.
I just want them to call and ask me a question. I don't want to nickel and dime anybody. I don't want them to think, oh, is it worth it for me to pick up the phone and call Amy? I just want them to call and get help so that they're successful.
Yeah, that makes sense. In day-to-day operations, what are your favorite tools to get your work done?
I like to write out my goals. I have annual goals. I break those down into monthly goals and then into weekly goals and then a daily to-do list. To me, that is the best tool to keep me on track. So I'm always reaching towards a really big goal, sort of a career boosting goals. One example might be publishing a book, right? That would be a big annual goal that would significantly increase my business. And so I would have a monthly goal, maybe would be to write 2 chapters or something. And then a daily goal might be to write a page or 2. And so I would want to make sure that every single day and every single week I'm working towards those big goals.
Yeah, excellent. And then in the beginning of our discussion, you mentioned one of the advantages of being a consultant is the flexibility in work, in work environment, things like that. You're able to work from home, or do you rent an office, or what's that setup like?
Yeah, I work from home. First of all, one of the perks of being a consultant is being able to work from home. And so I think a huge advantage is not having any overhead costs. So you asked me about startup costs. Why would I pay for office space if I don't have to? On the other hand, lots of people feel like if they're at home, then they're distracted and they'll be watching TV all day or doing the laundry or the dishes or something. So, it does take a certain amount of discipline to actually sit in your office and ignore whatever else is happening at home. To me, there's huge advantages to not pay overhead for an office. That's money that goes right into my pocket instead of paying for rent. But also just the convenience, no commute, no dressing up, all those good things about working from home.
Yeah. Do you have any routines that you've gone into to help keep you focused during the day and kind of schedule out your time that way?
I referenced my to-do list every single day, and I do write it in hour chunks. So from 9 to 10, what am I doing? From 10 to 11, 11 to 12. And I do schedule myself big breaks during the day. I actually schedule huge blocks of time for lunch and laundry and grocery shopping and other things. I also know that if there's 3 or 4 or 5 things that I need to get done in a day, those are scheduled in too. And I'm pretty strict about it. I'm pretty good about sticking to that schedule. And the amazing thing that you'll find is that if you're not distracted by regular office stuff, colleagues interrupting, impromptu meetings, going out to the water cooler, I can get done in a day in 4 hours, 5 hours, what normally would have taken me 8 hours easily. And so my workday is much more compact, but I'm highly efficient.
Yeah. And in the first couple months of your consultancy, what were the biggest challenges you encountered?
I think figuring out what it meant to be a consultant. I didn't have any models or templates for what a development plan should look like. I didn't even really know what a consulting agreement or contract should look like. I think it took me like 2 years before I realized that I should be including my bio along with the consulting proposal. It just hadn't occurred to me. And then I saw somebody else do it. I was like, oh, whoops. So you figure these things out along the way. It's nothing earth shattering or hugely damaging, but clearly my proposals now look a lot more professional than they did in the day when I was just sort of writing a letter to somebody. You figure these things out. You pay for a headshot. You hope it comes out all right.
Yeah.
You move along.
How'd you pitch yourself in the beginning? Did you, I guess, heavily reference your experience being director of development, or what was your initial pitch?
Yeah, I think that was it. And trying to get those first initial few clients so that you have testimonials. I took any work that came along my way. I didn't really know what kind of consultant I was going to be or what I was doing. I did some grant writing clients. I did a few event planning clients. I did a lot of development plans. And then I figured out, oh boy, I really don't like grant writing. And fortunately, I have enough work. I never have to take another one of those again. So I started to refer those out. And then I figured out, oh, you know what? Event planning, that's not really my type of fundraising either. I can start referring those out. And so I took on more capital campaigns and development plans. You evolve and you figure out what you like and what you don't like. I think at the beginning, you take whatever work comes your way until you have a choice.
Yeah, exactly.
When we return, a quick lightning round with Amy. First, a quick break where you'll learn about a free resource to help you build a personal brand and improve your marketing. You've heard Amy talk about building and creating a personal brand. Well, this free resource will help you do just that. The 77 Bare Knuckle Marketing Strategies report is filled with actionable ideas you can start implementing today to start building your personal brand. Download it for free by visiting imarketsmart.com/personalbrand. That's www.imarketsmart.com/personalbrand. With that, let's get to the lightning round with Amy.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
To charge what you feel like you're worth. Don't undercut yourself. Be confident in your pricing and don't back down.
Okay. And what piece of advice would you have given yourself as a 25-year-old?
Setting goals and then really trying to follow through the best you can on them.
Okay. And what book would you recommend to those getting started and why?
I would recommend 2 books. One is a series of books by a guy named Alan Weiss. He's consulting for Fortune 500s. So at first pass, it may not seem applicable to a small nonprofit consultancy, but there are lots of practices and principles that he talks about that certainly can be applied.
What's the book series for that?
$1 Million Consulting, $1 Million Speaking, those types of things. The other book that I love just in terms of setting goals and staying on track is The Success Principles by Jack Canfield.
Okay, excellent. And what's your favorite personal productivity habit?
List making.
What's the most common error you see nonprofits make and how can they avoid doing that?
Setting inappropriate goals for their fundraising. And so that's the most common mistake I probably see nonprofits make is setting unrealistic goals and then blaming fundraisers for not making those goals. Inappropriate way to set your goal mainly is if it's the difference between your revenue and expenses. So basically the hole in your budget, whatever the hole is, then you make that your fundraising goal, but that has nothing to do with how much you can actually raise. And so it's a wildly inappropriate way to set a fundraising goal.
And what are the best nonprofits doing right?
Investing in their development staff. And so they're providing ongoing continuing training. So they're sending them to a conference or 2 per year. They're paying for their AFP memberships so that they can have continuing education. And they're working collaboratively with the development staff and board members to set those goals and to set priorities so that everybody's on the same page and on the same team.
Okay. And what charities do you admire or support?
I'm personally involved with a local homeless shelter and soup kitchen that I love, but I also support a lot of national organizations. There's too many good ones to name.
Yeah, absolutely. And where can people find more information about your services?
They can find me at amyeisenstein.com. I also have my online major gifts course at masteringmajorgifts.com if they're interested in looking at more information on that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for your time today. It's been wonderful.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of How I Built My Fundraising Consultancy, presented by MarketSmart. If you like the show, make sure to review it on iTunes and pass it along to a colleague. If you're curious about what we do, make sure to check out iMarketSmart.com, and don't forget to download your copy of the 77 bare-knuckle marketing strategies to build your personal brand by going to www.imarketsmart.com/personalbrand. Thanks for listening.